What's up everybody? Chris Murray here, back again with another video. This time I'm going to be giving you 5 tips for shooting in the cold. So I'm here on the East Coast and it's been coldish, and I know it's been pretty cold in the West too, and cameras do not like to perform well in those conditions. And then being here on the East Coast, I think I went into work at 4 degrees the other day, and it's been steady in the teens ever since. A lot of black ice, a lot of freezing, just not fun to shoot in. Your image can be compromised by not being well prepared for the cold. I'm gonna be breaking that down for you in 5 simple tips. Tip number 1, keep your camera sensor temperature up. This will prevent noise and grain in your image. Now, this may be more easily controlled with a red camera. For instance, the black shading calibration that you could do in camera. Now, the new cameras start to do this kind of auto black shading, but you really want to black shade for the temperature and environment you are shooting in. So what does that mean? So the red camera has a sensor temperature and kind of like an external component temperature, the temperature that the camera is physically. And these are different. The camera may be one temperature and the sensor may be another. And this is also different from the temperature outside. Red has a default of around 39 degrees Celsius, I believe, but you want to adjust that, give or take, so that you're not overworking your camera. So let's say you have it set to the default of, I think, 38 or 39 degrees Celsius, and then you go out and shoot in 0-degree weather. It's freezing. Now the camera's working hard to get that sensor up to temp. So you'll see this displayed in your menu, and I'm gonna do an entire video about sensor calibration and the right way to do it and how to program it and the reasoning behind all of that. A cold sensor not calibrated to that temperature will produce noisy footage. Ugly, grainy, noisy footage. That when you might even notice this, people that don't have a lot of experience shooting with red, they take a camera, they don't do their sensor calibration, they go shoot in a low light, dark scene, and the walls look muddy. You just see it. The noise is just dancing on the walls. Just make sure your sensor's calibrated correctly to the right temperature, and make sure you're letting your camera warm up before you go film. Tip number 2, the second tip is keep your lenses warm. So what does this mean? You want to keep your lenses warm when you're shooting in cold weather, especially with cinema lenses, because they begin to freeze and lock up. The aperture ring will become stiff, but more importantly, the focus ring becomes an issue. When you're using a wireless follow focus and you're trying to rack focus, it's going to fight you because the grease inside the gear is freezing up, creating a friction that is not going to allow for a smooth follow focus pull. The tips I'm giving you kind of apply more to a cinematic set, of course. I'm telling you, you're going to get there in no time, and when you do, I want to make sure you're prepared for those obstacles when they come. Now, a good tip to keep your lenses warm is keep them inside. If you're shooting outside, find a nice warm place inside to store the lenses. Take the camera inside. It's a hassle, but that's what we did to change lenses. It doesn't take long to swap a lens, and it's much better to keep them warm. Now, another trick is to take hand warmers and actually physically put them on the lens with rubber bands. It sounds crazy, it looks crazy, but it helps. You don't want them freezing and becoming an issue on set. You always want the lenses to be working smooth. Recently, we were using Cook S4s on this feature, and the lenses were freezing up. We had 2 to 3 hand warmers on the lens, rubber banded around, while we were out there filming. Tip number 3 for keeping your camera warm while shooting in the cold is a heat gun. You could buy these heat guns at Home Depot or wherever, and while you're inside, you just kind of, at a safe distance, just heat your camera up. And I don't have one personally, but I have a kick-ass AC who did have one on the last feature I just did. Shout out to Derek Plow. He was well prepared for all these cold weather environments and was well on top of it. Make sure you have a good AC, but also make sure you know this stuff, so that way you can talk about it before you go into production, before you go out there in the cold and start running into problems that can and will get in the way of your filming process. Tip number 4, keep your batteries warm. Now, I know what you're thinking at this point. You're like, I get it, keep everything warm. And you're absolutely right. That's what's most important about shooting in the cold. Now, with batteries, when they're in the cold, they're gonna last much less than they would if they were a nice warm battery. Make sure you have a bunch of batteries or enough charge or a good process of a charging, transferring in a warm environment workflow, because you're gonna burn through batteries shooting at freezing temperatures. And tip number 5, last but not least, one that comes across as a no-brainer, as a lot of these may already have. Keep yourself warm and keep yourself practically warm. What do I mean by that? For instance, make sure the gloves you're using are touchscreen gloves. Make sure that you're able to control the camera through the gloves that you're wearing. Taking that glove on and off could slow down the filmmaking process and add up over time the amount of times you're dealing with that. At the same time, you'll often find yourself taking it on and off, and then you get filming and then it's been off and now your hand's frozen, and you need to make sure that you're keeping yourself warm. Make sure you're prepared with hand warmers, make sure you're prepared with toe warmers, make sure you have the appropriate gear, Under Armour, long johns, multiple layers. These are simple things that I know you already know, but it is imperative to make sure you have a successful day on set, because you'll be pulling 12 hours on an overnight in New Mexico at 6 degrees one day, and your only break to get warm is to change lenses, batteries, which your AC is doing anyways, but if you're bringing the camera in, which I recommended earlier, just to make it get a little warm, that's gonna be your break pretty much, other than lunch. So you need to make sure you're wearing wool socks, you need to make sure you're wearing proper shoes, boots for the winter weather is always recommended, and you need to make sure that you're prepared to handle the weather. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Those were 5 tips for a successful shoot in the cold weather, in freezing temperatures, whether you're in New Mexico in the desert, or in New York or Boston, freezing. Regardless, it sucks. But it is the nature of the beast, and you get a lot of cool stuff in the cold. I mean, films take place in the winter. You have to film in the cold. It's inevitable. But these cameras are computers now, and they don't like the cold. So hopefully some of those tips will help you get through that. I know some of them seemed a little self-explanatory, but I just want to make sure that you're thinking about these things when you're going on set, because if you're not, they can sneak up on you and they can become a problem. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. You can follow me on Instagram down below, and reach out again and let me know what you want to see in the next video. I'm kind of kicking around some ideas, and I leave for London. I'm actually going to be in London right now while you're watching this. But anyways, so that's where I'm at, and then I'll be back with another video. 2 videos a week I'm doing now. So I'll be back with more videos, and I'm gonna have that video on black shading your camera properly for different temperatures. So look forward to that. Until next time.